BARK Radio.
What's good, everybody? It's Robo from All Bark back with another video, and today I'm bringing you my preseason college football top 25. I've got more college football content planned throughout the month, so stay tuned for more videos, but in this one, I'll be going over my early insights on my top 25 teams in the country. Weekly pick videos are now less than a month away, and I have some other stuff planned as well as on the NFL side for picks this year, so stay tuned for that, but that's all I have to say for that right now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the rankings, starting at number 25. I really like Baylor's chances in the Big 12 this season. Sawyer Robertson's a stud quarterback to me, and I think they have arguably the best running back room in the entire conference. They've got some solid weapons in Josh Cameron and potentially Kobe Prentice, and it really just comes down to how well they can defend this season. They've got several new transfers who can make an impact defensively, but that area improving is definitely the biggest question heading into this season for me. I like Louisville as a top 25 team. Miller Moss is someone I thought would break out in 2024, and it wasn't the standout season he had hoped for, but I still thought he played well at times. And now at Louisville, he's got a bit of an easier schedule and a ton of help with Isaac Brown and a strong room of weapons to throw to. The defense is going to be the question mark for this team as well. They've got some strong pieces in TJ Quinn and Wesley Bailey and some other transfers, but the ACC schedule isn't too rough, so a strong defense could take them pretty far. I've got Washington in the back end of my top 25, and a lot of it is because I'm super high on Damon Williams. I don't think this Washington team is good enough around him to truly compete for a playoff spot, but Damon looks like a real game-changing quarterback, and he's got Denzel Boston and Jonah Coleman to rely on to help make life easier as he develops throughout the year. I think the Husky secondary could be really strong as well with Tacario Davis and Ephesians Prysock, but as I said, I'm just not sure they've got enough just yet to be near the top of the conference in the Big Ten. I'm in between with where to put Illinois. I think they're a great team and the schedule is not too hard. And Luke Altmaier was very good last season, but honestly, he didn't perform against better teams on the schedule too often. And that does concern me a bit in terms of some people believing he's a top 10 quarterback in the country entering the season. Regardless, he is a good quarterback and Illinois should be in for another great year with him. But for now, I just don't see him as that level of player. And I think Illinois' success should be more attributed to the entire team more. And this season, the Big Ten is definitely wide open for them. I'm very high on Austin Simmons, so Ole Miss cracks my top 25 despite losing a ton in the offseason, including a star quarterback in Jackson Dart. The Ole Miss offense is very reliant on strong quarterback play, so Simmons will be really important, and I trust how he performed when needed last year. The portal haul was pretty strong, but very heavy, so again, we'll have to see how everything meshes with all the new starters and depth around the team. But talent-wise, I definitely think this team can compete, and a strong first year from Austin Simmons is definitely in play. Texas Tech was a tough team to rank. I honestly don't mind anyone who puts them in their top 15 and is a true playoff threat because of how incredible their portal haul was. And I really think Baron Morton has a chance to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 this season. But I am a bit hesitant to see how everything meshes, especially with the offensive line and defense. The defensive line has a star talent to dominate, but half the starters came through the portal. So we'll have to see how it shakes out, but I'm definitely excited for the potential with this squad this season. I have Kansas State second in the Big 12 to enter the year. The Avery Johnson hype was huge last year, and he had his moments, but was clearly still learning. So this year, he needs to show that offseason work and be a more consistent difference maker. I think Dylan Edwards is an obvious star talent next to him, and I love Jace Brown as a number one target out wide. Jerron Tibbs is a big sleeper transfer as well for the offense. The defense should be good, led by Austin Romaine, but most important to the Wildcats' success is definitely going to be Avery Johnson's quarterback play this season. South Carolina is definitely a playoff sleeper this season, although I'm sure many will believe they have a shot because of the elite potential on the roster. Guys who can change games like Lenore Sellers, Nick Harbor, Dylan Stewart, Jelon Kilgore, and even Razul Faison from Utah State will provide a ton of firepower from the Gamecocks. As usual, they've got a good defense and reloaded that defensive line around Dylan Stewart through the portal. The season really is going to come down to that offensive line stepping up this year, and Lenore Sellers living up to the hype in the several big games they have on their schedule. I like USC quite a bit this year. Not as a true contender, but a very competitive Big Ten team. I think Jaden Mayava is a legit starting quarterback, and he's got an elite wide receiver room with Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane leading the way. I think they've improved the offensive line, and the running back room has two breakout contenders in Eli Sanders and Wayman Jordan. Defensively, the D-line should be productive, and the secondary has some studs. It depends on how they perform game to game, but I could definitely see a scenario where USC is in the playoff hunt later on in the season. I again believe Indiana has a shot to make the playoff this season with an easy non-conference schedule and a few tough conference games, and they reloaded the roster bringing in a very legitimate quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. They've got some star talent back on both sides of the ball like Carter Smith, Elijah Surratt, Aiden Fisher, D'Angelo Pons, Mikhail Kamara, and a solid portal haul overall. With Cignetti's squad now in year 2 and arguably a better roster, 9 to 10 wins is a very reasonable outcome again, with only Oregon and Penn State looking like clear better teams on the schedule. I really like this Texas A&M team top to bottom, but I do have some concerns, which leads me to leave them out of a true SEC title contender territory. I think Marcel Reed is a solid quarterback, but we definitely need to see steps out of him as a passer and decision maker this year. Consistency is key with this team. They've got a rock solid offensive line and a great running back room. I wish the weapons were a bit stronger for Reed, but they aren't bad by any means. And defensively, they return some great talent. We really just need to see them put it together on a game-by-game basis to be a real threat in the SEC. I have Miami in the top 15 to enter the year, and mostly due to the firepower on their offense. They brought in Carson Beck at quarterback, and he definitely needs to be better this year if Miami wants more than playoff aspirations. He's got great talent around him, especially with the weapons and the O-line, but he needs to be better with the ball this season. The Miami defense has had some star talent, but I'm not the biggest fan of the unit as a whole entering the year, and the majority of the secondary is brand new. That may end up being their downfall in bigger games if they aren't able to consistently get stops. Arizona State comes in at 13. They lost some star talent, but return a really solid group of guys, including one of, if not the best, quarterback-wide receiver duo in the nation with Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson. And despite losing a game changer in Cam Scatterbo, they brought in Kanye Udo from Army, who can handle some of that load, and still have guys like Kyson and Raleek Brown. And I really like the Jalen Moss pickup for that offense, paired with Tyson and McClain out wide. And they've got a great safety duo with Rouser and Alford back, so I definitely could see the Sun Devils winning the Big 12 and making the playoffs again, as long as the trenches perform. I think Michigan is one of the bigger wildcards in college football this season. I could see a range of 8 wins to 11, or maybe even 12 if things go perfect, with Bryce Underwood being the obvious X factor to it all. The defense is elite all around. The offensive line should be improved. The receiver room is slightly underrated to me because of poor quarterback play in the past and a bad passing system. But Chip Lindsey coming in should fix a lot in that department. And of course, Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall have the potential to be one of the best duos in the country. If Bryce is just average, I think 9 or 10 wins is very possible. And if he's an elite freshman performer, Michigan could be much more than just a playoff team. I think Oklahoma is going to be a better team than their record shows this season. The schedule is absolutely brutal, but they've got a ton of talent around the roster and a quarterback I really love in John Mateer. The defense has some studs, especially on the defensive line, and Mateer's offensive weapons are very strong with Deion Burks back and Jaden Ott at running back. They might drop a few more games this year than this ranking would warrant, but I really think they can compete with the majority of the SEC on a weekly basis. LSU has a really strong shot at a playoff appearance this season thanks to the return of Garrett Nussmeier and a strong portal haul. With another year in the system and some new weapons around him, I think Nussmeier could break out big time this year as an NFL prospect. He was very good last year besides the turnovers late in the season, but I thought the arm talent was clear and he's got a well-balanced offense around him. They reloaded the offensive line through the portal as well, so I don't have any issue with the losses there. And defensively, a resurgence from Harold Perkins and new transfer Patrick Payton would be massive to pair with Whit Weeks, who's an incredible linebacker talent for their defense. I'm really high on Florida this season, mostly because I love DJ Lagway if he's healthy to start the year, but they've got a great team around him as well. He's got a strong offensive line, some great weapons in Jaden Baugh, Trey Wilson, J. Michael Sturdivant, and freshman Dallas Wilson, and a pretty solid defense overall led by a defensive line loaded with NFL talent. There's several tough games on their schedule again, making it one of the hardest in the country, but I think Lagway just has that difference-making capability to take over close games against great teams, and this could be the year Florida is really competitive in the SEC and potentially a playoff team if they're able to win the majority of their tough games. Oregon is another wild card this season. We know they're going to be great, but just how great comes down to a few factors, starting with quarterback. Dante Moore didn't excel as a freshman, but that was at UCLA with a pretty weak team around him, and he was very young. Now at Oregon, with a year behind Dylan Gabriel, I'm expecting some great things from him. He's more matured and experienced with better talent around him, especially in terms of offensive line and weapons. Losing Evan Stewart definitely hurt, but freshman DeCorian Moore is a huge addition, and they've got other weapons like Kenyon Sadiq and Makai Hughes that I'm really excited for to see this season. I've got the defending champs at number 7 to start the year, but I don't really view it as disrespect. They just had so many losses to the NFL and have a brand new quarterback. I've got a lot of belief in Julian Sayin though, so it's more weighed by the roster retention, but Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs are back, as well as some other studs like Carnell Tate, Sonny Styles, and Jermaine Matthews. I like the running back room a lot, with James Peoples being a key breakout contender, and CJ Donaldson transferring in as well. If Julian Sayin performs at a high level as well, and this team around him reloads quickly, OSU will be right back in playoff contention again and atop the Big Ten. I have Georgia at 6, which kind of feels disrespectful, but I'm just not too high on Gunnar Stockton, honestly. The Georgia defense will be elite again, as always, and despite all the NFL losses, the offensive line should be strong. He's got a good running back room and some explosive weapon additions in Zach Branch and Noah Thomas. But comparing roster to roster, I just think Texas and Alabama have a slight advantage in the SEC, and I trust their quarterbacks a little bit more as well. But if Stockton does prove to be a difference maker this year, Georgia definitely has a title shot with how well-rounded their roster is. Notre Dame should be right back in the playoff conversation this season unless the quarterback play is rough, but I really like CJ Carr's potential, and I think he can take this team to greater heights than Kenny Minchey can. But regardless, winning with their quarterback play is super important with them not being in a conference. Both quarterbacks have got a lot of help around them with Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, Jaden Greathouse, and Malachi Fields. And of course, another daunting Irish defense to carry the load, led by Leonard Moore, Adon Schuler, Christian Gray, Drake Bowen, and potentially a breakout star in Bryce Young. I love Clemson this season. I think they've got a truly elite defense, maybe the best in the entire country, with Peter Woods and TJ Parker both being in my top 10 players in the sport, and Avion Terrell cracking the top 25. The Tigers also have my top-ranked quarterback in Cade Klubnik, an elite wide receiver trio in Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore, one of the best offensive lines in the nation in my opinion, and a potential freshman star running back in Gideon Davidson in that backfield. They've also had a lot of staff retention, which is huge for team success, so I have no doubts at putting them in the top 5 team in the country to start the season. I've got Alabama all the way up at 3. I'm less worried about their new quarterback situation than anyone else because I think they've got an elite roster from top to bottom and the right guys in place to help lead the way. But Ty Simpson's play will be a large part of their ceiling still, and if he's not the guy, I'm definitely interested to see if Keelan Russell is ready to emerge as a true freshman at some point. Regardless, they should be a playoff caliber team with a truly elite defense and strong offensive line play helping Simpson grow into his role as a leader. And of course, some difference makers around him and Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard making life a lot easier. I have Penn State at number 2 to enter the season, but what worries me is really the pass with them. James Franklin has notoriously struggled in big moments, and Penn State has not been trustworthy as a true contender. But they beat both SMU and Boise State last playoff run and return a great roster with some added portal talent, which makes this a big year for James Franklin. I'd argue it's his best roster with a weaker Big Ten in terms of nobody being the clear favorite besides them. And with a ton of new quarterbacks and question marks around the country, this season is completely wide open for them. Texas enters the year as my number 1 team in the nation from a roster talent aspect, and I really believe in Arch Manning's ability to lead the group to at least a playoff appearance, if not multiple playoff wins. I think they have one of the best defense in the entire country, combined with a loaded offensive playmaker group and a strong offensive line. If Arch is the difference maker we think he is, they can definitely go in and beat Ohio State week 1, and then the Longhorns are going to be a very hard team to beat all year long in the SEC. Here's a look at the full top 25 collectively. There are several teams that I heavily considered ranking but just missed the cut. The closest ones being SMU, Utah, Auburn, Georgia Tech, and Iowa State. Again, this is mainly a talent ranking, not based on how I expect wins and losses to shake out, because as we all know, schedule difficulty is all over the place in college football. That's it for my preseason college football top 25 for 2026. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or any ideas you have for content in the future. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
BARK Radio.